Vital's B Practice podcast is proudly sponsored by Maxxis, BergTech, and Industry 9. As most of you know, tires play a huge part in deciding if you make it down a section of trail and control or end up bonsaiing to the bottom on your head. Tires are not the place to cut corners, and Maxxis offers a massive range of models to meet the needs of any rider. They've built their name through racing at the highest levels of the sport, and you can visit your local shop or favorite online retailer to get the same tread patterns and compounds used by the fastest racers in the world. And if it were up to me, you can't go wrong with an ASCII up front and a DHR2 in the rear. Make sure to head to maxxis.com for more. With the tagline Labor of Love, BergTech isn't shy about the countless hours they've invested in developing components that they feel offer riders a true technical advantage. Based in the UK and born out of a passion for mountain biking and racing, BergTech produces a ton of trick parts, from bars, stems, and grips to anodized axles, shock hardware, and saddles. The cockpit of choice for the Santa Cruz Syndicate and many other riders. Make sure to check out BergTech the next time you want to give your bike some deserving love. Tested, machined, anodized, and hand-built by fellow mountain bikers in Asheville, North Carolina, Industry 9 wheels and hubs have become synonymous with quality and durability. I don't know if there is a noise as iconic as the buzz of an Industry 9 hub. They offer wheels for every budget and riding discipline, from dirt jumping to gravel riding or e-biking, plus you can get crazy with customized hub and individual spoke colors. So if you've been dying to build that Rasa-themed bike or some sweet rainbow wheels, Industry 9 has got you covered. Make sure to head to industry9.com to learn more. Hey, Dakotah, how's your reception right now, by the way? You're not calling in, you're videoing in right now.
Actually, I'm on one bar of LTE as I look at it, but I'm about to turn my Wi-Fi on. My Wi-Fi has been halfway decent. We'll try Wi-Fi apartment 5, and if that doesn't work, we'll try Wi-Fi apartment 24.
Okay.
If not, I can call in.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a B Practice podcast without a roll of the dice on whether or not we're going to hear from you or not.
Whack connection.
To
be fair, Loudenville, wherever the heck I am, has exceeded expectations. So if the Wi-Fi actually works, my mind will be blown. It will be just to make the whole pie complete of how much I'm enjoying this place so far.
Is that sarcasm or being serious?
No, I'm being serious. I rode a sick trail today. It was good.
Well,
I enjoyed riding my bike today. It was wild.
That's all we can ask for as your friends, is for you to just have a good day.
That's all we want.
Yeah.
That's all we want for you, Dakotah.
All right. I feel good that we're going to keep Dak on the line here. So I'll read an intro and we'll get into it.
The Wi-Fi 24. So we're good, dude.
All right. Yeah. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Vital MTB's B Practice podcast, presented by Maxxis, Industry 9, and BergTech. I'm Jason Schroeder, as always, joined by Tanner Stevens and Dakotah Norton. What's going on, dudes? How are you today?
Doing well. We got Dakotah, might have an image today for us. Might have him on video. Oh, there he is.
Oh, yeah. You know, for everybody listening, I definitely said that we were going to have video this year, and then turns out Dakotah being in Europe, it's not Dakotah's fault, but just having one person in Europe makes that very difficult. So, you know, preseason, we did a few with video. I think after the season, we'll get some more with video. But I've been doing a few video pullouts, like audio pullouts from our podcast, and I'll just throw clips over it and throw it on YouTube. And the last one of those did pretty well. The talking about how Charlie Hatton won Worlds. So try to keep those going. But for everybody listening, this is what, attempt 3 to podcast.
Dude.
It's currently Wednesday in, I guess, California and France time, which is where we all are. But we're going to get it done because Loudenville is this coming weekend. We don't have a lot of time. So we got to talk about Andorra before we get right back into a race weekend.
We could just forget about it. Just forget it ever happened. I think everyone in the top 20 wants to forget it ever happened.
Not wrong.
The top 10 is definitely didn't finish. I'll tell you that.
I'm underwater.
Yeah, Dakota, I think I'm going to veto you trying to FaceTime in and just come back to us calling in. All right, Dakota disappeared. He'll be back in a minute. But yeah, it was a very interesting weekend in Andorra. You know, a lot. I think it'll be one of the races that the end of the season we'll look back on, because the overall will not have been decided at this race, but it'll be sort of a turning point in the overall with just, we'll get into all of it, but Cami getting hurt in qualifying and being out for the season, the rain in the elite men's field for finals that mixed up the top 5 overall, and it's going to be interesting. I think there's more rain. What's that face? The train? I can't hear the train, luckily, so I don't think anybody else can.
Hear that horn?
Mm-mm.
What?
I know. Tanner and I both are close enough to the train here and on the coast highway, but it came by me a little bit ago. You know, it's on its way north, going by you right now.
Yeah. I think blew the whistle.
Yeah, we'll get into all of the racing stuff. Dakota's in Loudenville right now, which I want to hear his take on, because it's somewhere we've never had a downhill World Cup. They had EWS's the last, I believe, 2 years. I think they've had two seasons there.
Yeah.
We'll get into all that. Still waiting for Dakota to come back on, but let's just get into our Industry 9 Buzz Report, where we talk about everything that happened, not between the tape, when the clocks were going. Here comes Dakota. All right, we're on. We're getting into the Industry 9 Buzz Report, Dak. Let's just start with my note of what the hell is going on with UCI points. Turns out semifinals aren't even real. They don't count for shit.
Well, they were real, but now they're not real anymore.
I don't think that's true. What do you mean?
Well, okay, so from what I understand is yes, they are not real. They are a made up thing in terms of like UCI, like the UCI overall ranking. Like it seems that Discovery and the UCI are not in agreement here.
Yeah. Originally it was supposed to be like top 30, and then the points just carried on from there to everyone in the semis. It was like, if you finished outside top 30, you don't fight for the win or anything like that, or for the extra series points. But then your like UCI points and your other series points just carried on as if you got 31st or whatever it was before.
Yeah.
And
which
then,
we've definitely, oh sorry, I cut you off. Keep going.
Oh, I was gonna say, and then now it's like those points never existed, and it's like, well, originally it was supposed to exist.
Yeah, like for anybody who doesn't know, you can go and read, I think all of the conversation on our site was in the forum for Andorra, but this all came about from Adam Brayton, who is sitting, he's in 55th place in the 2023 UCI Downhill World Cup overall. And all of those points came, I believe they all came from semifinals. And as we've talked, when we did like our preseason, breaking down the new schedule or the new format and all of that, one of like the selling points on adding semifinals was that, okay, we're going down to a 30-person final elite men, but if you still make it in semis, at least you get the same UCI points that you would have the year prior, last year, from, you know, theoretically 31st to 60th. There's like some obscurities with protected riders moving on and stuff like that, but to make it simple, like 31st and on, if you don't go on to finals, you're still at least getting UCI points, which is valuable. The issue that Adam Brayton discovered is that it turns out those points you get in semifinals are only going towards the season overall. They're not going towards your overall UCI ranking, which
I tried to break it down on the site, but like that's always been a thing. Like there's always been your UCI individual ranking and then your UCI World Cup season standings, or you want to call it.
Essentially, like for me as a rider to sign up for a World Cup, I either need to get a petition spot or have 30 points. Now I have to have earned those 40 points. I have to have earned those 40 points through either getting them at Pro GRTs, Pan American Championships, or however I earn them in points paying races to be able to sign up for a World Cup and not have to petition and wear the jersey. Now, as I think at one point, I don't even know what the rankings say. I'm ranked 20th in the World Cup overall. I've had a race where I had an issue, and then so I'm not high in the overall. But going into national championships, I was ranked as the 10th. Well, actually, depending on how the date falls and when the points expire, I was ranked the 10th fastest individual rider in the world off of UCI points while being 20th in the World Cup overall. So those rankings are two very different things, just to give people that don't really understand. A bit of a.
I say, because currently right now, Andreas Kolb is first in the UCI ranking due to all of the points he's acquired in the last 12 months. Because as time goes on, once we hit, Snowshoe, which is a month from now, there'll have been other races that happened over a year ago at that point, and they'll fall off. And like when I was racing, or like Tanner, you and I were racing, I never looked at the World Cup series overall because I didn't go to enough World Cups for it to matter. I only ever looked at the UCI ranking to make sure I had, I think at the time it was 20 UCI points
or 30,
to not have to not have to petition. And I remember I got second at a Pro GRT, and it was like the second ranked UCI tier. Yeah, something like that. And so I got like 90 UCI points, or maybe not that much, but I got like a lot of UCI points. And that allowed me the following year to race every World Cup without petitioning or anything until we hit the middle of August when I got them the year prior. Because I remember I had to petition for Mont Saint Anne at the end of the following season because all my points that I had gotten the year prior at that race at Wyndham, I believe, fell off. And so I just want to point out that some people online were like, oh, it's on the riders to know the rules and like understand these things. But the thing is that like, if you're told you're getting UCI points in the same fashion we've always received them, which is at a World Cup, and if they were like,
if you qualified for the World Cup, you got UCI points.
Yeah,
it might not have been enough for a World Cup, but you got some sort of points.
Yeah, like you just assume that if you're in a UCI points paying position, whether that's qualifying top 20, finishing in the top 60 semis, top 30 in the finals, you just assume those are the same UCI points you've always gotten. And so for them to take only semifinals, not qualifying, obviously not finals, and decide that those are just only going to count for the one series, I think is like ridiculous. It's so dumb.
And then now you have a problem where there was no finals. It was top 60. So like what did the
You mean no semis?
Or like no semis this weekend? Like there was no super final or whatever. Like because there was no top 30 race. It was all 60 raced. And so like what do you give 31st to 60th those UCI points that you never gave anyone else in the beginning of the season because they were technically in the final now?
I know, and they chose to just treat it like it was a normal 30 rider final for points, but there was 60 riders competing for those. So like from 31st on, literally got no points this weekend. Which
so if it was a final and I would have qualified through, I would have got points. Not that it matters, but I would have got 30th place if I would have qualified through the semifinal and it rained. But because it rained and I got 54th place, I'm not ranked. I'm 54th where I would have been 30th or 30th.
Yeah. It's I mean, and this weekend it's a unique one with the weather, and I don't think it like I mean, I guess it pokes holes in aspects of the new format, but just the choosing which races to give points and semifinals in a nutshell has been kind of a shit show and not well received. And that is just another nail in the coffin of like what are we doing? What do we just fuck it, just go to 30 people in the final out of qualifying if that's what you want to do. Stop giving us these fake bones and
That's what I said from the beginning.
Dude.
Just axe it all and just stick to your guns and do the thing instead of like this like half-baked solution that
it's becoming less and less baked the more info comes out about it, you know?
Yeah, it's like they're trying to bake a cake on 150. Like the thing's just melting in there. It's not rising.
Shit ain't rising. No.
Yeah. And man, and like it just shows that like basically the broadcast can do whatever they want with the race and like the sport that all of us love. And like it's
that was a question I had for you, Dakotah, is there was talk at the beginning of the year of a riders union and there was some little action I feel like seen from the outside, but then where is that at now? Because I'm with the mindset that I'm tired of myself and all of us just bitching online or to each other about all these things. Nothing's ever going to get done from that, right? But unfortunately, I think the people that can do kind of the most right now probably is riders. Is there any talk of trying to get that rider union more active with the frustrations people have?
I am in the riders union. I have paid my dues. I am a part of it. I will say that there was a bit of frustration this weekend with the riders with what went on, especially top riders continually being in the rain due to the new schedule. And it just seems like the World Cup overall is heavily being decided by weather, which is, I think, frustrating for a lot of dudes that could compete for the overall. But with that being said, I know that Jack Redding posted a story about the issues with Adam Brayton, and it didn't seem to, like, other than reading his story, there was no talk of it within the union, which I think I think if it would have been somebody in the top 30, it would have been a heavy talked about thing. But I think because it wasn't it didn't affect anybody to raise a lot of flags. I didn't hear anything more about it personally, but I think that it's just showing like that essentially they can do what they want and they will. And at some point in time, I think it'll be an issue. But as of right now, I think there's just a lot of concern about when we race and scheduling, right? Like, I think after the weekend that there was definitely people were upset because the race was highly decided by weather that they knew was coming at 5:00. Like, they could have, I think the biggest issue with the weekend was that they ran a second 30-minute practice to see the conditions before we raced, which is like something that has never happened and a rule that's been implemented that we've never had. And it was like, if we didn't need 30 minutes, we could have had 15 minutes and the top riders would not have been in the rain. Or we could have just not had that practice and they could have ran the whole race through and the riders would not have been in the rain. They could have took the time gap out from the broadcast. They could have made a fair race. It was scheduled that it would rain at 5:00. Top rider, I dropped at 4:47 and it was raining. And it started raining at 4:46 at the very top. I think it was raining down the hill at 4:44 when Kolb was on track. But for sure, as soon as I put my helmet on to walk up from the tent to the starting gate, it started downpouring. So I think that was the biggest flag that was raised after the weekend. It wasn't about the points because it didn't affect a top dude because they seem to have the power, correct? I'm not saying that Adam is any less, or it's any less affected. But I just think that like the voice wasn't raised as highly, or I didn't see it because it wasn't directly in the Riders Union chat.
Mhm.
Not that anyone has any higher value than anybody else, but some people just have more audience to broadcast things to.
Yeah. And
that makes sense.
Like, at what point do sponsors get involved, because they're paying for these riders to be there, and the riders aren't getting a fair race, and it's really not showing the sport in the best light, not showing their rider.
Well, there was a lot of that with the pit locations this week, like a lot of uproar from team managers and sponsors about the pit issues. So I think this is the point, like when they put the pits 20 minutes up the road. It took me 20 minutes to pedal to the other pit on an e-bike.
Yeah, you guys had 3 pits last year. Like,
so it was like that.
Do you want to explain the logistics of the pits? I had a note about that because I think maybe the union posted a story of a sped up video of them leaving their pit and driving down the road to the finish of the track where there were other pits, and it was a long sped up video.
Yeah, and it probably took me 5 minutes to roll down the road, wide open, no brakes. So essentially you'd pedal, like, when you're going up the road from the town, like in the past, we've all taken the gondola from the city center to the main pit. And then you would have to essentially ride down the road for maybe 3 or 4 minutes from the old pit to where it splits. And then you can go back up the hill to the new pit, which is probably a 15 or a 20-minute pedal on a normal bike. But so in years past, you don't qualify, you ride up the road the next day. You don't take the gondola so it's a maybe like an hour pedal up this road that gets to the pit. So the XC pit was at the top of the gondola. You had to go down the hill, pedal 15 minutes up the hill to the race finish where the elite pit was, and then pedal another 15 to 20 20 minutes up the road to the top of the hill that was not the top of the racetrack where the non-elite pit was.
That's interesting.
It does not seem very fair. And there was plenty of room to have all the pits there, or at least room within reason. But unfortunately, the police were not allowing anyone to pit. Like, they had this, like, at the bottom of the gondola or chairlift, they had this like tent that was like maybe 30 by 40 or 40 by 40 that was where you were allowed to be to like have your little toolbox or store your stuff or whatever, because they were giving people tickets if they were in the street pitting outside of their allotted elite pit space.
That's so strange. It's weird because last year I remember people complaining about the pit setup, and you would think that somewhere like Andorra, that is so mountain bike focused, they've held World Cups for years now, that they would just build a paddock area or for year 2 resolve it, because the previous setup was like as dialed as it gets. Like the pits were on a flat section of road at the very top, right next to the XC track, food, and the start of the downhill track. And granted, the finish of the old downhill track was kind of obscure and just sort of off the road in a neighborhood kind of, but then you rode back down into the town and got on the gondola. But like, such a weird one. You would expect that they would have from last year to this year changed that. I don't know. But it sucks because it sounds like there's this weird hierarchy of the type of team you are and where your pit space gets placed.
100%, which is further showing that
pay to play.
The direction is going. Yeah, and I think that's the thing too, because it's definitely, you got to pay now. Like, it's expensive. Pit space is expensive, more than in the past. So pay to play. That was not awesome as far as like the pit goes, and the whole kind of vibe. I mean, the race ran great. The finish line was much better than last year.
Mhm.
Track
Was
was
it-
pretty good, real straight, but pretty good.
Was the finish still in the same spot as last year, or was that a different
Uh,
zone?
It looked
was maybe
close.
like it was close. Yeah, same
Okay.
zone, just like 50 or 100 foot over.
Okay, that's what. Yeah.
It was like the next ski slope over.
And do you know what the reason for them running the track up there versus what it was in the past when like Jason and I raced there?
Yeah, where the finish line is now a
Oh, yeah.
apartment building,
Okay.
so there's no way to finish. Have a
Okay.
finish corral.
It seems like
Yeah.
And just finish in Cedric Gracia's parking lot there at his bike shop, you know? He's the
And,
announcer and all. We could
we
just go to the bike
could
shop
do.
parking lot.
I'm unaware if Max Commensal is building an apartment building or the new Commensal headquarters, but either way, it's a pretty big building.
Yeah,
Dang.
you think that I don't know Andorra terribly well, other than the few times we've been there, but they have a lot of trails that come down that face and
Mhm.
kind of end up at the bottom. You would have thought that they could have just sorted it out. It seems like a heck of a lot more effort to do what they have and put the track where it is now, but that's not
Yeah.
that's not my logistics to sort out.
Also, what did they change the name of the bike park, or because the name as well, like 'cause it's always been Val Nord or La Massana, which is like the town that it's in. But then Val Nord was like the bike park, and now it's got I honestly
I have
don't
no
even
idea
know
what
the
it is.
name. But they kept saying like a name, and I wasn't sure. I was
Start
getting
with the
kind of
P?
confused.
Powell.
Yeah, it's like that's I'm just seeing PAL in my head. That's all I can picture.
How
Yeah,
fast or
it's-
Yeah,
something?
that's like that must be the town that it's in, which is not a town. It's just a different part of the Greg Menard's backyard over there. Something I don't know.
I love that. It kind of piggybacking
It's
on
in
the
his
talk.
garden.
Yeah, you finish an old
Pal
Greg's
Menard's
garden.
Pal Menard's garden.
Going off a bit, the pit location fiasco and all of that, and you already touching on just with all the weather delays and the changes in the schedule on race day. Can you run through what transpired on race day? Because, you know, as a viewer and also on a different time zone, it was like going to bed, I'm seeing like, okay, the race is planned to go super early in the morning. And I'm going to bed as I see everybody's stories, them waking up really early. And then when I wake up, there's like some stories of the race being canceled and then it's back on. Like how did that whole day go? And if the frustration is that finals happen for elites, the top 15 in the rain, why didn't they just race it first thing in the morning like they originally planned?
Yeah.
So to start this, Cam Ball got pretty hurt on the road gap in the winds in qualifying. And then overnight, we heard that the winds were going to pick up, and it was maybe 9:30 at night, and they sent out a press release that practice would be from 7:30 to 8:30 the next morning, and racing would be soon to follow and be done by like 11:30. They're moving it up due to severe weather conditions. And then overnight, a lot of the teams went up at like 1 a.m. and took their pit setups down from the B pit that was directly on top of the hill in like direct wind. So a couple of teams I think had their pits blown away and smashed. Actually, I think Dooley's team lost their pit, and potentially Pirelli Canyon maybe had issues. I don't know about Pirelli Canyon, but I think Dooley's pit was Mary Poppins into Spain. So
on the beach in Barcelona.
It was on the beach. It was where I should have been.
Just chill.
And so we woke up. My alarm went off at 5:30. I left for the track at 6. I was warming up, pedaling up the hill at 6:30 in the morning. It was still dark out, doing my warm up for practice. And then on the lift at 7 to be kind of first dude down for 7:30 practice or be in the front of the line. Dropped in, did practice, insane sunset session or insane sunset session, like on the top jump,
sunrise.
like
Yeah, that'd be a rise.
sun, yeah, sun, yeah, that.
Those photos are really sick. I want to
Yeah.
get the one of you like framed. It looks epic.
Unreal. So that was super cool. Track was running crazy fast. We all got done and we were all getting ready, and then the rain came in early, but it wasn't the storm they thought it was, which I don't understand that. They're like, oh, the weather's coming in earlier than expected, but it was just like a rainstorm. And it didn't even saturate the track. And then there was observed 90-kilometer-per-hour winds coming over the top of the hill. And who knows how much windier it was. It was fine in the pit because we were obviously sheltered on the back of the mountain, and it was sunny after the rain stopped. And then we were also all hanging out waiting for them to make a decision due to the winds, because I guess the winds were pretty gnarly on the top of the track. But when we raced, the wind was still pretty gnarly. They just closed the road gap and we all went around it.
It looked gnarly. Like super gnarly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So like Finn had pretty gnarly, and it started raining like on Finn. He had pretty gnarly winds, but he was even like, dude, I only had wind till like the first jump. Like it was, and then my run was pretty good. It was no issues. But for the top dude, the track got saturated and unrideable. I mean, maybe rideable, but not.
Yeah, we'll get into it.
To be competitive. So yeah, that was kind of the whole setup. We ended up, so I woke up at 5:30 with road practice at 7:30, and then they made another 30-minute practice at like 3:30, and then maybe it was 1:30, and then we raced at like 5 o'clock at night. So it just was made for a ridiculous day. I think everybody was over it.
Yeah.
My
man's out here working 412s.
What's that song? What new song that's the hit? I don't know. It's that country song, something about
Wrong
working
crowd.
all day. Yeah, you're not getting it? No.
Got a little dirt on his boots.
No, it's not dirt on his boot.
I think you're describing every country song I've ever heard. Working all day in my pickup truck, drinking beer with my lady.
I like it, and my dog.
On your tractor.
Wrong crowd. Well, you know,
one person out there will know what you're talking about.
It's probably that new
that guy.
song.
That guy's like, "Yo, I got you." He's like, "Cheers, bud." Yeah, got it. Okay, what's next on the list?
Well,
that's what happened. It was terrible.
It's so hard because we've all done races where there's weather and you have that terrible time sitting at the bottom, not knowing if you're going to race, and your head's like, oh, it'd be fine if we don't race. Maybe they'll take qualifying. I did okay. And then immediately afterwards, you're bummed and you want to race because you want to do better. But then all that time goes on and you're like, are we doing it or not?
I'm good.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
It's
sixth place, it wasn't that great, but I'll take it.
Yeah.
Check.
I mean, totally. It's tough for me to put blame on the organizers because I'm sure they had a lot of factors to like consider. I think it was in the Win TV after finals that he interviewed Cedric, and Cedric made some comment about they were dealing with high winds, and the issue was being able to have helicopter access in case there was an injury. And that's what kept postponing it as well, I believe, or was one of the factors they were dealing with. So, there's so many things that behind the scenes we all probably don't know they're having to weigh out. Still tough.
Yeah, for sure.
It
is cool that they're it is sweet that they're like taking into fact like rider safety. Because usually that's not a factor that's even in the decision. It's just like, it costs a lot of money to host this race. We need to host the race.
Yep. Well, maybe that's a good way to go into bad news, which is Cammie going down, as you mentioned a moment ago. But she went down due to wind on that pretty big step down drop that's in the open.
Yeah, Red Bull drop.
In qualifying. And she actually posted an update this morning she actually didn't break anything, but sounds like she has a pretty good concussion, and I forget something with like her chest. It just sounds like a big impact, and some head trauma that she's going to be out the rest of the year, just recovering, like doing the smart recovery, making sure her head's all good. But that sounded like, or I heard some people that were upset about that they didn't close it sooner, and then it took somebody falling to close it, and then as we saw in the race, they kept it closed for the rest of the weekend. I don't know. It's kind of a jumps and drops, and the danger that those bring are kind of a weird one to weigh out what's responsible and not. And I'm sure it was windy. I don't know. It's tough. It's such a bummer though. Like a huge bummer for Cammy to be out. Dak quit.
No, I'm here. I'm live.
Too many 12-hour days.
Doing it brand new. Too many 12-hour days, dude.
That's 6 jobs. You don't get tired.
You don't get tired. Man, don't sleep. All right. Well, let's kind of keep breezing through.
Well, let me tell you,
Industry
man,
Nine Buzz Report stuff. That's good. I'm happy to hear it.
Takes a lot to do these World Cups. A lot of focus. I feel like I've went to war after.
I believe it. It sounded. We'll get into the track and how your weekend went. I'm excited to hear about your perspective as somebody who actually rode down the mountain. What else do we have in here? Here's one. I've definitely talked about this before, but it came up again. Troy Brosnan still running a 220 millimeter rear rotor and a 200 millimeter front. I think it's the smartest thing I've ever seen. I rear brake more than I front brake on any given ride, and I like my rear brake to work really well. And we posted like a little thing from Pit Bits from his mechanic. I believe his name is Aaron. Is that right?
Yeah.
And their whole thing is just that it's a feel and sensitivity reason why he runs a little bit smaller rotor in the front with more in the rear. He also sounds like he, like most people, rides the rear brake more than the front, and it has a more balanced feel running a smaller rotor in the front. But like, why are we running big rotors in the front still? Or why are we not at least just running big rotors front and rear to start on any bike?
Jack Moore used to do the 220 rear as well.
Oh shit. Maybe it's an Aussie thing.
Yeah, just the old skid steer. You know, sometimes you gotta operate.
Drop the heels, turn with the hips.
Yeah, it's
he
an
does
operator's
do
choice.
Yeah.
But
he does do that.
I feel like that's one of those things that challenges most people's preconceived notion of how you're supposed to set up your bike. But to me, it's not really based in anything. Like I think if you're a not bigger rider, but you're like 150 pounds and up, you're going to benefit from bigger rotors in general, especially one in the rear.
Dude, my big ass is not slowing down on any 220 rotors. Like, give me some brakes with some more power. I mean,
whoa.
You're saying the turps ain't turping?
Yeah. Whoa.
No, I'm
saying
that the chirps are turping. The terps are chirping. Like, I'm saying that they have great modulation to the amount of power they have. They're a very good brake. I'm just saying they ain't the Brembo on the front of the faux fatty. Like that thing will throw you over the handlebars in third gear.
Man, maybe we need like 4 mil thick rotors as well.
We're probably getting there pretty soon. That'd be great because I'm so over having rotors that rub. Fuck, dude.
Yeah, and I just it just comes down to weight, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is for all you weenies listening. Weight weenies. I just have never been halfway down a gnarly downhill track and said, you know what, 50 grams more brake oil in my brake system I would really notice that right now. Like that would really make it hard for me to get down this track. Never have I thought that.
Dude, I just had that thought yesterday riding. It's weird you've never had that.
Make them bigger. Make them have more power. Make the suspension better. Like not that the suspension is bad. I'm just saying like if we just get over the weight obstacle, we can have more cushion to do some pushing. You know?
I think general consensus is leaning that way more and more. Thank goodness.
Which is cool. I'm down for it.
Especially when it comes to brakes and tires.
There's like no fluid in them. Like there's just not a lot of fluid in them. So Like, and I've just never been like, wow, it's really slippery today. I don't wish I could get more grip. Like, I get they roll slower, but I'm down with some grip. I'm cool. I'm cool with more to go faster.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I'm testing a bike right now that comes out next week that has code brakes on it for four piston. I guess you only make codes in four piston. So, you know, downhill rated brakes with 180 rotors front. Well, calm down. with 180 millimeter rotors front and rear, and it's a aggressive philosophy bike. Like, it's meant to ride aggressive terrain. Doesn't have a ton of travel, but when I met with the brand and rode the bike and all that, super cool people. But I was like, come on, 180 rotors front and rear? I was like, this isn't going to work. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm 175. Sure, I'm above average, but not by much. Maybe I am average these days. I have no idea. But like,
I think you're average.
Dude, I was like, this isn't, especially if you're giving me a little slacker head tube angle, I'm going to go down some steep stuff. We need bigger rotors across the board.
That's
I'm
the thing,
sorry.
too.
Nobody's going to be upset about being able to stop better.
Dude, but then you bend the rotors.
Not if they're
If
thicker.
you're putting codes on an enduro bike, make a bigger brake for a downhill bike.
Yeah.
Like,
this is a bike
at least
with
make it, you know?
This is a bike with less than 130 millimeters of travel, but it still can get down. But
I got Terps on my 120 bikes.
Exactly. But if you're getting down and you can't stop, what's the point?
Yeah.
Hey man, I'm a fan of the bigger front rotor. I'm a front breaker, so
I'm a front breaker too, but like, I don't know. It's front brakes are super useful for control braking and steep.
Like, I think it's because I weigh less, though. I feel like if you weigh more, you use the rear brake more because you're just anchoring everything. Like,
let us know. You know, you're a smaller dude, Tanner.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you've been known to pedal on the flat sections and pedal anywhere. Really, you pedal everywhere you're pedaling. You're probably a similar size to Troy. Like I'm just maybe Troy is trying to be able.
But he's riding steeper tracks. So
yeah,
like,
that's
the rear
true,
brake's gonna straighten him out. Like
he's trying to pull the brake the same, like with the same, like is hard front to rear. So I get the bias. I don't know. Let's call him up. See if he had more power, he'd be.
Yeah, I understand the concept on your guys' like steeper tracks, like Andorra and like, man, like Val de Sol and stuff. Like it's to straighten you out. Like if you're going through something, you got to brake really hard. You're gonna have to use a lot of rear brake to keep you straight. But
yeah,
for like the average person that just can't stop, like in general, like unfortunately, it's like just put those things even front and rear. Like let's go 200. And
yeah, but that's my whole thing. I think it's not. I'm going to get back to the point here of what I was trying to make before I went on a tangent of weight. I think that the thing is not that he is saying there's not enough power, there's too much power, whatever. I think what Troy is trying to do is have, like, cause when you rip on the brake really hard and then kind of modulate the front brake, I think by changing the rotor size, he's making it so he's braking evenly front and rear on the amount of input he's putting to the lever.
I think that's the point for sure to take away, because Troy's braking differently than Tanner and I are on our everyday ride. He's chasing a performance.
Dude, so maybe I should go. I have a 220 for the rear of my for my downhill bike. I got a 220 and 200. So maybe I should flip them because I definitely brake harder with my front.
You should try it.
So maybe
all of a sudden you're just
I'm just flipped around now.
Your mind's been put on backwards. You just gotta swap the rotors. You'll be all good. You've been looking in the rear view too much.
Yeah, maybe I should.
Right.
I definitely
I'll get you some rotors. We'll do a rotor test. It'll be perfect.
Yeah. Give me the 160-200 setup. Let's get back on that.
God.
Give me the
160.
The big hit FSR with the 24-inch rear wheel.
That's what we're gonna do. Actually, we're just gonna do a little rotor test and start you really tiny and go up and see what happens.
Let's do it. We'll go.
Do you get faster being able to stop more?
We'll go to
Probably.
Laguna and ride PGs, and
just ride to Lonix. That's like the perfect destroy a break.
We're gonna ride PGs down steep rock rolls and see if the 160s
No, you guys
can
are
stop
all
you.
wrong. You guys are all wrong. Get halfway down the Planey. Like them boys, everything's chirping halfway down the Planey.
Imagine 2-piston brakes, 160 rotors. Maybe let's just go 140. I got a 140 on my gravel bike, I think.
Wow.
Or on my road bike. One of them has a 140.
Aren't road bikes 160 these days?
I think they are.
Yeah.
But
there's a sign.
Yeah, but yeah, imagine that 2-piston brakes, like those things would literally be on fire in Morzine.
Dude, I don't know. I must be braking wrong because I can fry some brakes these days, and it's definitely my.
I would literally the Planey. I had brake dust on my fork, like on my fork lowers, like every day. Like, dude, I was going through a set of pads in like 2 days.
Wow,
16 runs. That like you'd get to the bottom of a couple of their steep tracks, and all you would smell is brake pads, and your frame would just have like brake pad.
Just looks like the rims on a BMW.
Like loam. Dude, it was like loam.
Brake loam.
Crazy. Yeah, brake loam, dude.
No.
Yeah, it looks like the wheels on a Beamer.
Jeez, man.
It was crazy, dude. We was eating some brake pads up out there. Good for business.
That's insane. I mean, tracks look dope. I was pretty jealous.
Dude, the clips of
we were
Dooley.
having a time.
And
yeah, that track was sick. That track was sick.
You don't expect it from Dooley. Dooley was just being style lord for like a week, just flying.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, all he was doing was riding loamers too. He was just like, oh, there's only one track on the mountain, dude. It's over here.
That's pretty tight.
I was surprised. Very surprised by Duel.
Dude.
Gwinny was back at the races, which was
downstairs. You want to talk to him?
Yeah. I feel like he's I guess I still get intimidated talking with old Aaron.
Yeah, same. Same. We were trying to get on the podcast last night, and I was trying to tell him he couldn't have dessert at dinner. I had to go. Imagine trying to pull that one off with Aaron. Dude, we gotta go, dude.
I was gonna say, trying to tell him he can't have dessert. Those are fighting words.
He would have gave me the look. So you talking to
me? Well, I watched just the little interview we did with him, real brief, and it sounds like he's like 9 weeks post surgery and finally getting back to a little bit of physical movement. But you got any updates since you've been with him? Like, is he just there to hang out with the team? But he's not racing this year, is he?
No, we went to the gym yesterday. He did 30 bench push-ups, and he was telling me today that his chest was pretty sore. It's just like doing push-ups on the bench. He did a set of 30, and he was wrecked. Big wrecked.
I just picture that's all he does in the gym.
He could do
one set of 30,
right?
Yeah.
Normally, like we do push-ups, like we'll do like workouts. We either go to the gym or like we'll do like a home workout, and he's like got a backpack on filled with whatever he can put in it, knocking out like sets of 50 or whatever. He's like a horse, dude. And I'm like doing my little sets at 20, and I like got the shakes on like the third set, and I'm like can't get up, and John Hall's laughing at me. And Aaron's just hammering him out. Yeah, we had JH in there.
Yeah, JH.
And dude, Aaron was like doing like what's like not a lot of weight, but doing like tricep extensions. And dude, he just had like the shakes going, like with not a lot of weight. So he just got cleared for like traditional weight training or whatever. And obviously he's still really weak from being hurt for the last couple months. So he's training hard, but yeah, it's kind of funny. He's like, dude, I just don't know how I feel. Like I'm doing everything I can. I'm sore, but I'm really not doing much of anything. It was really funny.
Oh, that's pretty
funny. Dude, my chest is blown.
Is it sweet to have him back at the races? Like, did you use him at all this past weekend?
At World, he wasn't there. It was just like a limited team, and I had Joe Breeden. Unfortunately, didn't make the team, so those guys were like full taking care of me, which was awesome. But having Aaron back at the races is phenomenal, man. He's so funny. He has a good vibe, and he's a good dude to have around. Like, obviously, he's still Aaron Gwynn, right? He's still intimidating, but I'm like, oh, little boss is in town. Oh. But he's really fun to have around, and he's a funny dude, like super funny. So he keeps the vibe like pretty light.
Rad.
It's good to have him back. And he was actually on trackside doing lines for us and giving us advice and stuff last weekend, which is like pretty dang cool.
Dude, he's a wizard with reading tracks and lines and all of that.
Yeah, he is. He's really good at it. Like, we did the track walk at Andorra, and he's like, "Oh yeah, race day last year. I kind of here, there," and I'm like, "Oh, I didn't even." I was like, "Wow." Just really...
What does that even mean?
Yeah, he's like skipping corners. Like, okay. Dude. Well, it's funny because I had a really crappy time training, and I had two like pretty big mistakes, and I hadn't walked the track, and I got smoked by like 7 seconds in time training, and I was like, "What the heck?" And I did really mess up a couple of things, but then we went on track walk, and he's like, "You go here?" I was like, "Nah." He's like, "Oh, that's a second." And he's like, "You go here?" And I'm like, "No." He's like, "Half second." And he's like, "Dude, you just one time training. By the time we get to the bottom, you gave up so much time."
That's funny.
He's like, "What were you doing?" He's like, "Dude, what were you doing over here?" I'm like, "Dude, come on."
Oh, it's like going over your homework with the teacher.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's literally what it was like. So it's been cool. Like, even though it's been a bummer having him hurt and not being able to like ride with him and stuff, but he definitely has taught me a ton in the last year, which is sick. It's it's very cool. Very well. Not a lot of people in the world can get to study Aaron Gwynn when he's riding down a track wide open. And I've been fortunate enough to follow him and watch him ride and get to see the show. And then to have him like going through my racing and helping me has been like so cool. Like, the dude's a legend. So it's been awesome.
That's tight. That's a cool experience. It's funny too. I had a little bit of that a decade ago when he was a part of the junior teams I was on. So it's funny, full circle, like you being a part of that now. So at a much higher level that actually matters.
Hey, you know.
Yeah. Well, let's close out our buzz report here with something we skimmed over, but you just mentioned time training was back. Just unexplained. We have it all of a sudden. Do you have any word on that?
The UCI tried to cut our practice down by another 30 minutes on the first day because the juniors needed a course, like a little 15-minute practice to see the change in the course conditions before they're qualifying, because a lot of juniors were getting hurt. And pretty much like a few of the dudes like, no, you've already cut enough practice. So they actually, what they did was, you'd normally have 3.5 hours or 3 hours, but they just made 2-hour-and-a-half blocks. So B goes out for an hour and a half, and then A goes out for an hour and a half, and then B goes out again, and then A again. So it actually works out pretty nice because you actually get to go, if you have a big change, you have a gap to make a big change on the bike, or if you want to eat lunch or whatever. And then the second half there is not, in the past, time training has been like 30-second gaps, whether you wanted to take your time training run or not. And now it's just like the timers are running, and if you want to do a run, you can.
Does that mean that everybody has access to it, unlike before?
Everybody in the A practice, yes.
Okay. Huh. So it's a good
thing.
Maybe
it is just top 60. Maybe they only have 60 chips and they only give it to 60 riders. I don't know. Yeah. Can't speak on it. Got to have a chip.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, time training, it's funny looking back before it got taken away. Most viewers were probably like, yeah, whatever, who cares? It doesn't count for anything. But then I forget, once we didn't have it at the start of the year, forgot how much you would look at it to try to kind of read into what might happen the following day for qualifying. And it's a good, I never actually had time training at World Cups, but it always seemed like a really cool way to gauge kind of where you were or try a unique line or whatever it might be. So I was stoked to see it. Hopefully they have it this weekend.
Yeah,
Sounds
I think
like
that schedule worked really good. So hopefully that will stick.
Sweet. Well, anything else, or should we move on to the Maxxis make or break section?
Old G Atherton back on the racetrack.
That was the last note I had, which was freaking sick to see. He did not make it into finals, but first race since Leo Gang of 21, and since then all of the crazy injuries he went through with that wild crash falling off that cliff. So, dude, G is kind of like, you look at G's stats on paper and he gets forgotten about maybe a little too much. Like, he is a current legend in the sport. He has done so much. He maybe gets overshadowed by his sister a little bit sometimes, but dude, the Athertons are so talented. It's crazy.
Legendary.
Yeah.
Legendary. Yeah, he was pitted next to us and he came around the corner. I didn't even realize he was racing. I gave him a shout before he went up, and then he came back first lap and had a flat tire, and he's like I don't remember what he said, but he came in and had a flat tire first run and had something really funny to say about maybe I didn't miss this, like what am I doing? And we had a super funny comment, and then he had a really good attitude. It was kind of funny because he was after Charlie Hatton and Cole, but he's like, man, are your brakes getting hot? All I can smell is brake. They were giving him a bit of a hard time. Nah, our brakes are great, dude. Maybe you do them too much or something like that. It was funny. The whole Atherton program has such a good vibe over there. It's pretty sweet. But yeah, it was kind of funny, pitting next to him all weekend. It was really funny.
That's sweet.
We should talk about how much easier it was to watch the racing this weekend because there wasn't another final on top of it.
Oh no.
It was the 60 riders, it all kind of went through, and it was easy to watch. It was nice.
I know every weekend or every podcast there's just a segment where we shit on the broadcasting a little bit, which
I thought it was decent this weekend. Aside from the slow-mos mid-run, I thought it was decent.
And I think in Dak's run, midway through his run, we just cut to a replay of, is that what you're talking about? Yeah, I think it probably was in slow-mo. I was like, why are we watching this? He's on track.
Yeah.
I thought most of the camera angles, most of the camera angles were awful. All the drone shots, for the most part, were awful.
Dude.
But
did you guys watch Iron Man at all? Moto race?
No.
They use the drone a ton in that, and it's
so good.
It's so
I think
bad.
it's good. What?
No, it
Which
flattens
ones?
out.
I like the just straight aerial ones.
Okay, I like the straight aerial where you can see the whole track.
Mm-hmm.
I
guess
it
that's
for
all
that,
I'm thinking of
for that kind of thing. But they were following and stuff, and it makes the track look flat.
Mm-hmm.
It
or
the
GoPro
on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I agree. I don't mind it. At least
I like
in
the
those
set the scene. The one that you're talking about, more so sets the scene.
Yeah.
And I would
it's cool when you can see where you lose all perception when it's flat, but then you can see two dudes zigzagging and stuff. That's probably the only one I like. I agree. When it's just straight, at least when they follow, they keep the rider in the shot. Unlike the downhill races, dude, it's so bad. I'm who is filming this?
Yeah, I wish they did in the downhill race. I wish they did the top down, at Andorra, because the woods are pretty spread out.
Mm-hmm.
So you can kind of see the track or generally where it goes. Because it would be nice to get the overview of hey, this is where the track goes. Kind of goes down. There's the wood section. There's the open wood section, the triple, all that.
They had a few of those, but I think they were too high up.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I felt because they actually had some, and the top part of that track would be kind of cool for it, maybe because you can just see it all at least. But some of the shots were so pulled back, you were just watching a dot. Obviously between tape, but if it was a little bit lower, you could see a bit more of what that rider is doing in the moment.
Yeah.
Shit was kind of whack. All right, let's I'll read Max's make or break. We'll talk about the track. Do you have a section in mind, Dak, before I read into this?
I don't even think like there is like a make or break section. I think it's just like,
all right, well, then save that
the make or break. Yeah.
All right, Max's make or break section. Moving on to talking about the track. Dak, was there a section that made or broke this race?
Yeah, when it started raining. That was make or break. When the Maxes were no longer gripping the track. I think
I actually
normally,
like that
we go
response.
into. Yeah, I mean, like I just think that like when you like usually you go through the race weekend and there is like a make or break section. I think one thing we did see that was positive this week, in terms of the track, there was like one major section that had you could either hit two corners and then exit early or bomb straight line all the way and hook a turn right at the end and come out into the ski slope. I think that was like not a make or break section, but what I'm going to bring up of the quote unquote make or break section, it was nice to see like a very consistent like line choice. After I had ballooned the corner before the triple, I forgot where I was and accidentally went into the wrong line and realized it halfway through and had to adjust. But it was like nice to see like a clear like difference in people riding this line and that line instead of like, everybody just funneling into the same section to hit the same corner 3 foot this way or a foot this way, So that was really nice. I think that they did a great job at that section getting a line choice, and both the sections were tricky to ride fast, and that was cool to see. But back to my make or break, the fact that it started raining on the top dudes, and it was crazy challenging. So maybe take this as a little bit of a moment to talk about like race runs and how the conditions were. Or do you want to elaborate more on like the overall racing line choice, stuff like that? So just get in some track notes, or
I have
we
a
just,
question
we
for
just
you,
talk
Dak.
more about it?
I've got a question. It seemed like obviously the track was physical, but the last split it seemed like a lot of people were kind of struggling with, and there were a few people that were able to kind of bring back time there, but for the most part, everyone was losing time.
Yeah, I'm down to speak on that. So you hit the BMX triple. I think everybody watched the race. So you essentially had the fast BMX style top. It was almost like a BMX track. And then you would get, there was, a couple bus stops in that, but for the most part, it went into like what we would call like the fast middle that traverses into the rock garden. The rock garden had a couple of lines, but for the most part funneled into the same bottom line. And then same line through, let's call it Aaron's section, where he lost the front the previous year, that long, steep, wide open. And that was just pretty much no brakes all the way through that next wood section until it popped out into the open ski slope. You had the BMX triple, the split lane, and then your exit speed out of the split lane was across the flat ski slope that went uphill into the woods. So I think that maybe if riders were able to execute the exit of my Maxis make or break section, we'll call it the split lane, they were able to carry some good speed into the woods. And then it was just a kamikaze luge to the bottom. So you'd come in, go across a slight traverse with a setup, you'd make a left-hand turn, brake into a right-hand 45, and then it was just a straight line until you turned at the bottom of the like that kind of that rocky corner that ended up almost turning into almost like a berm, and you hit the little double, and you land off the double, and then it was almost straight all the way through till the bottom out. Like for the most part, there were not a ton of turns in the bottom of the track. Like once you got, like, there are a lot of berms up top, but then it was just a lot of like 90s. You were never like making full 180s, and we don't see a lot of full 180s in the World Cups anymore, which I think those have a higher. Everyone can hit a 90 close to the same speed, but the 180s are where you really can make up time if you hit them well. And we just had so little of them these days. So I think that the big thing, if you were able to make up, let's call it the kamikaze luge, went into there's like a left-hand corner before that little road gap where you went tight through the trees, and you'll watch a lot of riders do like a quarter crank when they come out of that corner, or like I think Pinky made up a lot of time there in the junior race. If you could just set up well and execute that corner and get speed across that flat, then you'd hit the road gap. And then if you could hit the right, hug the pad and carry speed across that next straightaway, that was really tough to do. And then again, like there was a big compression that had a rock on the landing you had to shimmy around, and then it was onto a flat road to the step down out into the kind of the last finish ski slope, and that was hard to carry speed across just because you like were hauling ass into a compression that bucked you out, and right where it wanted to buck you out into what would have been the landing was a huge rock, so you had to like kind of slot into like 1.5 feet between a tree and a rock at wide open speed. So that, and Bruni actually somehow manualed the compression. I like on like he was like full Baja truck mode, just like it wasn't even there, like normal. So it's hard to say. Like that might have been confusing for some people, but it was a game of carrying momentum and then getting the, like, because you can only ride this straightaway so fast. And then getting the speed, the exit speed out of the corner. So being good with your braking, executing your corners, and carrying the exit speed out of a couple of the corners. But really, you would have just had to have raw speed to make up time, like just raw speed. I think it's not like you did anything spectacular or rode a line different than anybody else, or it was just like raw intensity and raw speed.
I mean, yeah, that's what it seemed like. Tebow winning was just like letting it hang out,
letting it hang.
Yeah, like
I think completely.
Looking at the results on Roots and Rain, it looks like kind of like Tebow won it in the last sector, and then Greg kind of lost it in the last sector.
Well, that's that game. It's like, are you willing to? I guess, are you trying to get it to the finish line, or are you willing to, like, keep it pinned? Like that shift in your brain of like that section was so close to the finish line and it was so intense that it's like your brain can either go to, oh, let's just this has been a good run, let's get it home, or like, I want to win, I'm gonna push Barry till the end, like till the very end. And that's, Tebow has been known to push everywhere.
I think that's 100%. What he's known for.
Yeah.
It well,
and his eyes when he's like racing, he's got these like wild eyes.
He's got an intense expression on his face.
Yeah.
I think as well, talking about how you just had to kind of let it hang and there wasn't a ton to maybe separate people with all of that. I think it really shows in the elite fields times between 3rd and 10th, everybody's on the same second. It's like 2.3, 2.5, 2.5, 2.6, 2.6. Like it's, the times are so tight except for Greg and Tebow, who were a little bit up on everybody else. And, you know, weather permitting, everybody, I think times would have continued to get quicker. But it is,
I mean,
it is
even Dak, like you were like 11 seconds off the win and in the rain. That's pretty wild to be.
It is.
Like,
and be very much like, you know, in the very back of the pack. I mean, World Cups are freaking fast these days. I think I actually had a note from further up when we were talking about the whole semifinals debacle and how just even I had the thought that like you don't even get points if you make it in the semifinals, and it's so hard to make it in the semifinals these days. But I went and looked, and it was 11.2 seconds to be in 60th place. That's how far back he would have been in Elite Men. I'm like, dude, that is so tight. I mean, it's been like that for a number of years now, but just to remind everybody, the shit's hard.
Yeah.
Well,
Gnarly.
I have a question about the track, which is pretty broad and vague, but
Hit me with it, Jimmy.
do you think it's a good downhill track, and do you think it's boring? Like, the track from a viewing standpoint is maybe a little dull in a way, regardless of how it's captured. Like, if I'm just looking at the vlogs and the raws and the broadcasting, it's everybody's kind of in that squatted attack position, holding on. And the compressions, there are some, but they're more rider built as opposed to like the natural terrain, and you just traverse a lot. And like you're saying, there's the only 180 corners are the ones up top that are big ass berms. Like the only real gnarly technical section is like the main rock garden and maybe that kind of one traversy one at the bottom in the new bit. It just, I think back to the old Andorra, and it was so unique and it was really gnarly. Yeah. I don't know. You raced it. Is it boring or is it a good track?
Man, wow, that's a tough question. I think that it is what people want to. I think that people just think that there's a correlation between tight times and exciting broadcasting. Nobody wants to see 4 seconds back, because nobody's brains can think that he can hit something better and make up 4 seconds. Because the modern tracks, you can't do that on. It's impossible. You're not going to hit something 4 seconds better. On that track, there's no way you're going to make up even 2 seconds in one section. Like, I don't think that the racers are so good, and the tracks are fairly simple, that you're not going to, the days of being Sam Hill and roasting something and making up 2 seconds are over. Unless maybe, I just don't think you can. Yeah, maybe you can in unique, I'm not trying, you can poke holes in this or whatever, but in unique situations you can. But for the most part, in the top 10, those dudes are pretty good, and you're not going to make up big time gaps. So tight time gaps make for good broadcasting and good racing. And I think that the broadcast likes tracks like Andorra, where the speeds are high, it's fairly simple, the times are tight. Personally, do I think I never felt like at Andorra I was afraid to ride anything. Like, where in tracks in the past I'd be like, man, this section is gnarly, I'm afraid to go in here like and ride this section. Like, wow, this is gnarly. Andorra is like scary because you're like, you just shut your brain off and leave the brakes open and just go so fast into stuff that it's like scary because it's so high consequence, but it's not hard. It's just who's willing to leave the brakes open and turn their brain off. And,
most of the track is over
the
40 Ks, right? You're going like over 40 kilometers per hour for most of the track, I think, was like on the
I would
broadcast.
say a lot of it. Yeah, a lot of it. So it wasn't really a game of like, being just game of mowing. You had to be precise, but at the same time, like, everybody was on pretty much the same line and everybody was pretty much wide open. So it's like making up those time gaps is I guess pretty hard. So yeah, it was a fun track to ride, but to try to win that race, you just had to be willing to just have no regard and send. Which I think the way the race played out, if you would race everyone in the rain, it would have been the best rider wins, which was definitely Loic Bruni. I think Loic's run was phenomenal. Fun track to ride. I had a good time, but not necessarily. Is it a good racetrack? It's hard to say. For the viewer, maybe it is. For a racer, not. I didn't think it was exceptional by any means. Like, compared to Val d'Isole, like, not. I don't think you can really compare those.
Yeah,
or Mount Saint Anne or something.
Totally. I'd be curious what at least a lot of people on the internet. It's a little mixed, but I don't think everybody from a viewer standpoint was super hyped on Andorra or is super hyped on it. Like the whole idea that I'm not disagreeing with you, Dakotah, because I have heard the thought put out there that tight racing, high speed racing, it's what broadcasting wants because that's what's good for viewership. But I don't know if that like is ringing true. And like I looking at the results from Val di Sole, the last World Cup, there was about 8 seconds separating the top 10 versus 3 at Andorra. And Jackson won by, I think, a little over 2, something like that. So more, obviously the track there's a lot more to separate riders from a talent standpoint, but also making or losing time, which I think makes for good racing as a racer because there's opportunity. And then as a viewer, you're more invested because you know that there's somebody can be back and gain time, or you can have somebody who blows everybody away by 2 seconds. And it's just like the high speed bit is cool, but then I think they blew it in the way they captured it this weekend then in the broadcast, because all of the high speed sections, the angle either needs to be different or
it's all shot head on. So
I say like homie who's filming it needs to not be zooming in so freaking hard right as the person is in plain side of view. Like I don't know. This whole question came from Spomer because he was saying that like all of our views on everything from this weekend were like a half or third what they usually are, like Vital Raws and site stuff and all of that. Like people just weren't as invested in watching Andorra coverage. So it makes you think.
I will say one of the most exciting things to watch for me on the live broadcast was the go around on the drop.
Dude, people were sick.
Oh yeah, that was sick to watch.
It felt sick. It felt so sick.
Like a scrub roller.
Yeah. Like it was kind of awkward. Like you could tell like there was too much speed going into it. And there's like, are you going to jump far right? Are you going to try and make it left and line up the corner better? Like Ronan Dunn on that
Bruni
was sick.
Tell me you guys saw Bruni
was glued.
inside through there. I was like, there's half a second.
Yeah.
Like, dude is always on some other shit.
And that's like a 180 turn in a sense. Like,
it's all right. We got our 180.
But yeah, the thing that was not supposed to be in the track was the best thing to watch on the track.
Yeah. We got to save a little bit of time to talk about Loudenville coming up because the few track previews that have been out for that, it looks like a pretty dope track. It kind of has everything we're saying Andorra didn't, including a lot of 180s. So,
a lot of corners with long straightaways.
Dak might be drilling some holes in his frame to make it lighter for these 180 turns.
I like that. We're gluing extra knobs on.
Glue a couple extra knobs on me for the weekend because it looks like it's going to take some insanity to get the job done.
Throw the leathers on. Or laying the hip down.
I need those gloves with like the knuckle protectors.
You need the downhill longboarding gloves with like the plastic pucks on your palm. Some of those off cambers are long. You might be better sliding them.
Oh, just foot out, hand out, getting solo. And looking like Stacy Peralta out here.
You got the hair for it.
He's got the Tony Alva hair going. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. All right. Let's breeze through some racing. A little bit of racing recap. Give some highlights from the weekend, starting with junior women. Iris van Leuven back in first place. She's in my mind, before I looked at the overall, I'm like, she's the girl who's kind of crushing it this year. She's like the one to beat. However, second place was Valentina Rose Sanchez. Third was Lisa Boladou. And in the overall, because Iris didn't race in Leogang with that terrible crash she had, she's still in third in the points. Lisa Boladou is holding on to first, and then Valentina's in second. So pretty exciting in the elite junior women's field. Points are 195 first, 180 second, 170 third. So it'd be exciting. It's cool to have, like, after who was it last year? It was Jenna Hastings and Phoebe Gale, like them two battling it out, and then we get a fresh year with some new faces and names that are being real exciting. Abby Ronka and Taylor Osgard, two U.S. riders, still up in there, still up in the top 10 with 8th and 9th. So shout out to them always. Stoked to see that. Moving on to junior men. All it needs to be said, freaking Stinky Pinky, finally on the top 10. So hyped for the kid. His stoke after he crossed the finish line, his like Win TV interview, his post-race interview, so genuine, and like the kid is so hyped to be there. And after Worlds, like him qualifying fastest and then like detonating himself in practice, it just felt so time and right. So
yeah,
very stoked for him. With that said, man, we can't miss our boy Evan Metcalf in 4th.
Evan, let's go.
Just as hyped.
Evan Metcalf was ripping corners.
Honestly, his run was sick.
It was. It was it him that his cornering technique is kind of unique, but like epic at the same time.
He has like a
he like turns with the rear in his hips.
Yeah.
It's like textbook, but different at the same time. Yeah. It was sick because we got to see. Well, I mean, I think we usually get to see most junior runs these days, but you also never know how much of the run you're going to see. And his was one that I believe we got to see like almost the whole thing, which was really cool.
Dude, his posture and like, he looked good. Our boy Evan.
Yeah, man, we were talking. We were like one race away from making a mid-pack Metcalf stickers. So
sorry, Evan.
Yeah,
no more mid-pack Metcalf.
We're just kidding. He was dude, fastest middle 2 splits. Yeah,
dude,
epic to see.
He turned sick in the middle 2 splits. Like he was like turning. I don't know on what edge, and like roosting and like ripping corners that had no support and carrying them up.
Yeah, man.
Sick.
Pretty rad. I swear he's like, in my mind, he's just only ever finished in 13th place. So definitely his best World Cup result. Yeah. Hyped for the kid. What else, man? Old Hauser back up in 2nd, back on the podium after his winning the first round, and then kind of a little rocky in between. That was cool to see. And then Nathan Ponvian, I believe is a French rider, in 3rd. What's my note here for him? Oh, it's his best result ever, but he got 4th at Worlds, which I kind of looked past. So another, it's always cool when you see like a name and you're like, oh, that's right, I've never heard of them. And you look them up and you're like, oh shit, they're just like building steam right now. So yeah, cool to see. And then Bodie Kuhn, that kid looked so cool on a bike. Like he has he looks like just a little Loris. He's just a young Vergier. I mean, same bike and kit and all that kind of crap, but like his style's very poppy and exciting and energetic. Yeah, finishing 5th for him. He maintains the overall points lead. Pinky moves up to 2nd. Hauser moves up to 3rd from 5th. Henry Kiefer, we didn't mention it, but he broke his wrist, I believe, in practice. And I think it's his wrist, and will be out for kind of unknown time, but he drops down to 4th. And then Leo Abea. Oh, wait, sorry. I think my notes are wrong here. I think Leo Abea drops to 5th after finishing 9th this weekend. Yeah, man. Exciting. It's kind of coming down to the old Pinky Kuhn battle. I like it. America versus Canada. I'm in for it. The Pinky Kuhn. Let's do it.
Jesus.
Oh, man.
Pinky, man. Dude. I'm pumped for Pinky.
I know.
Yeah.
It's so about time. It feels like it's been waiting for it for so long. So, and I was thinking about it. When was the last time an American won?
Dante.
That's right. Dante won one.
Yeah.
Did Nick win one as well?
No.
He podiumed.
3rd. Yeah, and then he got 3rd at Worlds.
That's what it was. Yeah, Dante, probably like 2020, maybe 2019.
2020 is COVID year
Yeah, that's right.
in Portugal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sweet, man. That's cool. Cool to see Pinky holding it down.
Yeah.
All right. Keep moving.
Yep. Women's.
Into the women's. Qualifying was Valley, Nina, Millie, John Sett, Monica Hasnick. Finals, man. Nina Hoffman freaking took down Valley. It's pretty I don't know why it kind of felt surprising, but I think Valley has just been on such a tear this season that it was pretty sweet to see Nina with her knee problem she's dealing with and, you know, kind of having sparks of greatness this season, but like not great luck and all that come through with the win. That was really cool to see. Same with Tawny Seagrave in third, back on the podium, first time since her concussion and that whole long recovery she had last year. She's been pretty vocal about that, and everybody's been able to follow along. So I think a lot of people were, you know, felt that one, stoked to see her back on the podium. What else, man, with the women's?
Yeah, Marine's kind of always been there. She's been consistent on the podium.
She has. Another good weekend.
Yeah, I think.
I guess
Anna Newkirk in 12th.
Yeah, it's got to mention again, just having Cammie out is a bummer because it was such a battle between her and Valley the first half of this season. I mean, she was leading the overall this weekend before she crashed. Going into Loudenville this weekend, Valley's now the points leader. Cammie drops to second. Nina moves up to third from fourth. Maureen Gabarou up to fourth from fifth. And somehow, old Rachel Atherton is just hanging on to fifth in the overall.
One race, two races.
Two races, yeah. It's pretty epic.
Shows the value of doing well.
Yeah, it really shows how heavily weighted the first few positions are with points. Even if semifinals don't count for shit. All right, man. Sweet. Hyped to see. I'm excited for this coming weekend to kind of see that Valley Nina battle continue to play out because Nina's building momentum. Valley's kind of in the best form she's ever been in. It seems a lot more comfortable in her abilities. And we're at a fresh venue, even playing field. Moving on, elite men. All right, Dak. We've talked a lot about the track, the weather, all of that. You qualified 6th. You finished 54th. Maybe take us through 52nd. Okay. You want to take us through 54th?
Don't say it again. Don't say it.
I finished.
This is all that matters. I finished.
My third best World Cup result place ever, I'm pretty sure, was a 54th. In Andorra, actually, and I crashed. Anyways, do you want to take us through maybe just how your weekend sort of went? Because sixth place qualifying is pretty sick. Like, I know you were hyped on that. I think we all were as well. I mean, regardless of the rain, that's out of your control, but you feeling pretty good after this weekend?
Yeah, I am. I've been working, I've just been working. I've been putting in them long hours and doing honest work, and it's good to see it pay off. Qualifying, I felt pretty confident in how the bike was working and did a bunch of testing going into the race, and felt like I was in a good place and felt like I was riding really fast in practice. Debatably had a couple issues because I felt like I was overriding, like riding too fast and braking too late and like having issues. So qualifying, I come head of steam, pedaling out of we had a 2 hour hour, almost an hour, 40-minute delay before qualifying due to the wind and Cammie's crash. It was like a little hard to get fired up for qualifying, and I felt like I was in a bit of a fog. Like pedal out of the gate and hit the first corner and almost missed the rut. Like did miss, like I was like shoveling my front wheel on the top of the rut, and then
he's out here digging holes.
was able to get back into the rut, but then got off balance, was leaning the long way, and had to slam the brakes on like halfway through the first corner, like really brake super hard because I was like about to ride off track, and then had to pedal into the first corner and kind of get my speed back up and going. So that section carries speed. So I definitely lost a lot of time, and then was just kind of going through my qualifying run going, you need to go. Like, what was that? Like, you're a bonehead. Like, idiot. Ride your bike better. Do better next time. Do better right now. And ended up qualifying 6th. So yeah, I just kind of like halfway through the track shut my brain off and was able to ride like a little more on instinct and not let it hang out, but like rode, I think, the last 2 splits to like my full potential, where a lot of the time being unprotected, I tend to ride stiff and ride a bit slow and just try to nurse the bike through and get on to the semifinal, where it's just hard to be unprotected, man. If you slam a rim into something and then my head just kind of shut off and I rode really well. And so it was like good to see like 1.3 something back at the first split. And if I wouldn't have had that issue, I probably would have been on pace in the first split and would have been 1 second faster. I would have qualified 4th. So just showing that I do have the speed and I just have to trust in my abilities. And then felt pretty confident going into the race run. Unfortunately, the morning the track was running so fast, I blew off track twice, just like fully went wide and blew off the track. So it was nice to have that second practice to kind of recollect myself. Like, I felt confident that I could learn from those mistakes and gather myself for the race run and perform in the moment. Although, I had issues in the morning. So getting ready for the race run, I was pretty nervous because I knew I could do well. And when I mean pretty nervous, not as bad as in the past. So I was able to, go through, kind of hang out. It was a long wait, which up until figuring out if the race was canceled, it was kind of just like a block party. Everyone was just hanging out, drinking coffee, chilling. And then it was like, after the second practice, it was like there was almost 2 hours that I had to wait, and it was not very nice. I just kind of like laid on the floor in the tent and, patiently waited for my time to do my job, and did my warm up, got off the trainer. And as soon as I went to pull my helmet on to walk to the starting gate, I grabbed my goggles, went to walk to the starting gate, it started downpouring. Took 2 steps back, grabbed my roll off, and started up the hill. I was like, so lame, dude. It was like the most deflating feeling because I watched Finn pedal out and he got like kind of gnarly wind. I was like, oh, that was gnarly. And then when Danny was sitting in the starting gate, it just started downpouring. Finn, Cole, Danny. So Danny fully got screwed. Like, there was no hope. I didn't know it had been raining previously down the hill. And even though it did, there was some rain for other top dudes. It hadn't saturated, and by the time I dropped, it was an ice skating rink. I literally, with 10 seconds to go, stood up, said, "Lucky me," rocked back, and then pedaled out. Just like
it looked
slick.
I think Danny is one that comes to mind, where as you watched his run progress, you watched him give less and less shits about it. Like, by the time he got to the newer bits at the bottom, you could tell that he had already done the math in his head of how far back he was, and it wasn't worth eating shit to already be getting almost last place. You could tell in his body positioning, he was just trying to ride down without getting squirrely. I think Jordan was kind of the same vibe.
Jordan's fully just sat down.
Yeah.
Someone had like a full fog run at the top. It was like, it looked terrible.
Yeah.
I forget who that was.
Was that Finn? Somebody has, they cut back to the top and it's just a cloud.
Yeah.
It was getting worse.
It was pouring rain. It was just like a cloud. And I was like, well, that's where it changes.
Yeah. Dak, would you say that it was Finn's third place run was pretty impressive then, since he still had a little bit of weather to deal with? Or do you think he was like right on that fringe point of it being slippery?
It's hard for me to say, and I'm not here to discredit anybody did. If you're on the podium at a World Cup, if you had a damn good run and you rode really well, nothing was more impressive than Loic's run. But with that being said, so from my experience, I went into the first corner, almost tucked the front in the first corner, and then hit the second corner. It was dry. Hit the third corner where cold slid out, and it was like an ice skating rink. Almost lost both wheels and went down. In my head, I felt like I was going down. It was not as gnarly as Kolb's. And then I just proceeded to, because it was actively downpouring when I was racing. So I couldn't see tire tracks from the rider before me of like where it was dusty, where it wasn't. The only place really was after the road gap, and then going into the straightaway, I kind of seen some tire tracks, and I could tell like where it was polished and where it wasn't. So you're looking for where it's shiny, and where it's shiny, it's death, and you can't turn there. And you're just like reading the track on the fly, trying to find something to turn off of and not lose the wheels. So all the lines like going below the holes were no longer rideable, and you were going to crash if you tried to go there because that's where it was hard packed and shiny. So I was aiming for all the holes where I knew that there was dust underneath to turn, or to use the hole to get enough traction to turn the bike. And then by the time you got to the bottom, it was hard pack. Like where Kolb crashed, I went wide, squared that corner off because I couldn't, and had to jam the brakes on to make the turn because there was just no traction to turn. Like I couldn't get to line up the corner. So I think.
Did you leave your tires the same?
Yeah, I was on full dries.
Which I think
there was no
the
time.
Move. Yeah, but like you wouldn't have put spikes on, or I mean, maybe
no. It was just like hard packed, slippery, greasy. Yeah. And like it was really hard to sit there for 3 minutes in the starting gate, just knowing you had no chance. Like just watching the dirt get shinier and shinier, and knowing you have to still go perform and race in it was scary. Like it was like really a terrible. I mean, 3 minutes in the starting gate, watching it rain is a long time.
Yeah,
an eternity.
It's depressing.
So I will say that the one thing, like Loic's run was super impressive, but I will say after Coulange, it seemed like you could see the dust pockets. Like it rained for really hard for a very short period of time. And then when Loic was coming down, not discrediting what he did, because it was very impressive, and he rode a lot of shit incredible. Like he had the run of the day, in my personal opinion. But I will say up top, it looked like there were some tire marks where you could see where riders would win. There was traction. So like if you can see it shiny, even though you're making this decision in 0.2 of a second or 1/10 of a second, you can see where it's shiny, and you can see the tire tracks where it's dust underneath and people have turned. If you have tire tracks, it makes it, you have twice as much to like read to try to find that grip to get the bike to turn.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, it's like if you're riding in a group and you're the first one down, or you're the second, and you can see what somebody else is doing, and you might be making a decision in a split second, but it's still more educated than if you're just reading it blind.
Yeah. And when I dropped, it was like, for the most of the track was like, unless you were in the woods, it was like no tracks, downpour. Had no idea. Like when I entered the rock garden, nothing even went in my head to say slow down into the rock garden. It's going to be slippery. I just like went over that crest and was like, oh my God, like what have I done? Like I'm going to get cheese grated.
I will say everyone managed the rock garden very well.
They did.
With how icy it was.
Gosh, it looked so bad.
Dude.
Polished.
Polished. So that's all I have to speak on the race. It was overall pretty lame at best. Lame.
Well, there's no debating that Thibaut Deprella's winning run was a much drier affair than the top 10, 15 that came down, which that's the way the cookie crumbles in downhill racing. He won the race. You know what I mean? I know a lot of like, if I'm
check
Loic,
cash.
Yeah, dude, exactly. I feel bad for Loic. If I was him, I'd be pissed. And if I was Thibaut, I would be freaking hype. I just won a World Cup. I don't give a shit that it rained, because I'm sure he's been at the top in the same position as you guys with it pouring rain. It's just how it goes. Like Greg said it the best for sure, where he got second and he's like, yeah, got a little lucky with the rain today. And I've been way more times I've been unlucky than not, and it rained on me. So I'll take it today. So, which I don't know if this is completely accurate. I read it in a comment online. I think it's his 85th career podium. for old Greg, which is bananas. So, yeah.
Bananas.
Spell it out. Old Greg.
Old Greg.
Really insane to see. Well, closing out the top 5, mentioned was in 3rd, and then Anton Vidal in 4th, and then Bernaker in 5th. And yeah, man. I mean, it was I think Loic was definitely a rider that this weekend hurt quite a bit for the overall, as well as Jackson, who was leading the points overall and qualified 3rd. Loris as well.
Jordan.
I think the one key or pro is that Dakotah Norton, but the one pro or good thing is that at least it was fair for all those dudes that are competing with each other. Like, the overall doesn't get too mixed around. Like, Tebow definitely had to come up. He went from 7th to 3rd in the overall. Finn went from, I believe, 2nd or 3rd to 1st in the overall. Jackson drops a 2nd. Loris drops from 3rd to 4th. Loic's in 5th still. Cole goes from 4th to 6th. Jordan goes from 6th to 8th. So, you know, everybody went down a little bit. I'm not looking at the points in front of me right now to know what the gaps are, but we still have 3 rounds remaining. Is that right? We got 4.
We have 4.
2 French ones,
2 North
and
American.
2 North American ones. Yep. So that's still a lot of racing. As we've seen the last few years, stuff will come down to that last race. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. I think the defeat on Loic's face at the bottom was pretty heartfelt, even though anybody watching, you're like, dude, you just had like the most insane run out of anybody else who's come down to these conditions. Like, calm down. You fucking got points at least, you know?
I love when Finn was like, yo, like the broadcast is running.
They're like, save face.
Yeah. Like Loic was pissed, and like understandably pissed, because he sat up there 15 minutes while it rained and watched, I don't know, it was pretty much everyone go down in the dry. And then those last like 10 riders just kind of got the short end of the stick, especially after waiting all day, like we talked about earlier. It was like, why didn't we just, run this a little earlier? Like,
oh yeah, Dakotah put it perfectly. Yeah, you're just sitting in the gate like, cool, I'm starting this off already behind the curve. Yeah. Shit's tough. Well, I think that's enough
Berg Tech labor
talk. Yeah, man. Let's do it. Berg Tech. What?
Oh yeah, go for it. I was gonna say, how did we do on our predictions?
Oh,
but
I don't have Dakotah's written down. I actually copy and pasted ours from last time. I had Loris, Loic, Kolb, which if it didn't rain probably would have been close. And then I had Valley, Cami, Nina, which I wasn't very close on at all. You had Troy, Kolb, Lori, which Troy and Lori, not their best weekends. Where did Troy finish? Troy was in 15th, so average for him.
Yeah.
After some podiums this year. You had Cami, Valley, Monica, which you got Valley right.
Valley
in the right spot, actually.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about us going over our race predictions in the following podcast. It doesn't matter anymore now to me.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we did it once. We'll never do that again. I don't even know what DACs were.
Me either. All I know is I wasn't on the podium, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I'm out.
All right. The Berg Tech labor of love. Our chance to highlight a racer in finals who's on more or less a privateer program. This weekend, I think there were 2 riders that it was kind of between. And it's tough. We texted about the one, which I still feel pretty solid on. But if you look at the old Google Doc here, the last one I have written down, I kind of forgot about. Do we do a last minute swap? I don't know what his program is like. I know what the first person's program is a little bit more, and he has some support. They got a pit. Does that bottom bullet point individual have a pit at the races, Dakotah?
I don't. Not that I know. What bike are they riding?
Oh, you don't have the Google Doc open?
No, I got it. I got know what bike they're on.
They're Commensal.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying
they're both on
Commensal. They have a support pit. Yeah. But I think that let's slide it. I'm gonna leave. I'm completely open to either options. They're both gonna get it at some point in time.
I'm gonna pull a last minute swap and say we go with the last one because the first person seems to be trending towards they're gonna have another good result. Not that this person isn't also, but this. All right, we'll just say it was between Dylan Maples and Evan Metcalf. Which shout out to Dylan. He had a great qualifier. I believe he was in the 20s, and then finished 17th in elite finals. His best World Cup finish. Also shout out to Dooley. He was in 18th as well. And it was between Dylan and Evan Metcalf, and for Evan to get fourth after so many kind of mid-pack results, I think he's well deserving of this. And I think both him and Dylan are going to continue to trend that way. Dylan's kind of not come out of nowhere, but like homie's got a head of steam and he's fucking sending his life in practice and everything. Like he had quite a few clips in Raws this week. So he'll get one this year. I feel it. But yeah, man, Evan Metcalf, fourth place. Feel good.
Attaboy, Evan.
That's what's up. All right. Close this thing out. Loudenville. I'm sure it's pronounced differently if you're French. It's this coming weekend. Does stuff start tomorrow or Friday?
Track walks tomorrow.
Okay. Is racing on Sunday though because there's an EWS?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
No XC.
No XC.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Too steep of hills, man. They'd have to have motors.
Are we above tree line this weekend again?
For the start of it. Have you watched the course preview?
No, I haven't.
You should. There's probably more now, maybe, but there's one with Loic, and there's one from Millie Johnset from, I think, like a pilot event they did a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
You can go watch those in the forum right now. But they, first time we're having a World Cup there. They've had EWSs there in the past. It is a very interesting track, I will say. And it's Dakotah, it's pretty close to Andorra, right? Like, isn't it in that same
4 hours?
Yeah, you're like in the same mountain range, kind of near Lords-ish, maybe? I don't really know. I don't know why I'm going on about geography of Europe. I don't know it very well. But the track is bike parky and flatter at the top, kind of like an old Andorra a little bit. And then you drop pretty heavily into just, get your parachute out because you were falling down a cliff. A lot of off cambers, a lot of bike park trail that you then hop off of and kind of cut across, and some unique taping setups. And then at the bottom, it gets some kind of tighter, flatter bit. So a longer track as well, I believe, like probably around 4 minutes. It's going to be an interesting.
And the finish line is really something.
Is it?
It's like a sketchy pallet drop into like a weird hip tight turn corner thing into a parking lot. So it's going to be something.
You'll have to see it. If there's one thing World Cups could get better at, it's the ooh and ah features, just being built better. Jumps. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't even go. I could have spent 30 minutes complaining about that weird triple roller thing at Andorra last weekend. But yeah, it'll be interesting. What are you thinking, Dak? Are you like, I mean, it's a new venue, which I can't not be hyped on. The track doesn't look bad. It looks like a good change a little bit.
It's definitely going to be different. That's for sure. Different than what we've raced in the past. I think that it's got a lot of 180 berms with long. I think the time gaps will be long or bigger because of the long straightaways out of corners. So if you do botch a corner, it leaves a lot of time to be made up. And also, I think it'll be interesting to see like the track. A lot of it looks really one-lined, and if it gets super beat up, you're just gonna be drilling holes and bike park corners, and yeah, it's gonna be something. So I'm excited for a new venue. Historically, I've done pretty well at new venues. This one looks a bit different, but I mean, it'll be nice to have something a bit different.
Yeah. Do you think it's a track? Oh goodness. Do you think it's a track that does look very one line, and there's a lot of parts that are on that sidewalk with bike park style trail where there's no creativity to be had with lines or anything like that? But the track, like you're saying, is a few kind of lulls in between corners, and it's a longer track where just overall speed throughout 4 minutes seems like the track will be won by riders who can maintain that speed all the way versus like riding the one or two really steep bits better than everybody else. Like you'll have to ride those well, but if you can just throughout the whole track keep that average speed high, that seems like the key of this weekend.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, it looks like you're just going to have to be able to be efficient, tucking, pedaling, carrying speed. You botch one of those, man, it's a lot of time with those long straightaways. Like you get a little offline and have to hit the brakes. Man, it's hard to make up that speed. So the riders that are really good and precise, I think, will shine.
Sweet. Supposed to rain? Looks like it'll rain.
Oh boy, yeah. We went on a trail bike ride today, and it was super slippery. So I think we're in for it.
Yeah, because that dirt looks kind of clay-like. It looks like with moisture, it doesn't get better. It probably gets worse before it gets better.
You guys remember Morzine 2016 Crankworks or Leger 2016 Crankworks? That's what it looks like it might be. That's what I'm calling.
Don't say it. I don't want to hear it.
We gotta get those rotor guards. Put the rotor guards on for those 220 rotors in the rear.
Get the flats out.
Yeah. Bring flat pedals?
I did not bring flat pedals. We had some.
All right.
Did you bring any shorts?
Did you bring shorts?
No, but I have informed the union there is a shorts bounty.
Oh.
And with Ollie Davis getting my little Morzine training partner got 11th last week?
Yeah.
So the shorts bounty is on.
Wait, was he wearing shorts when he got 11th?
No, he wasn't. But he would have been way cooler if he did.
I saw in some Raws 2, maybe 3 shorts riders. And then actually just today I was catching up on some of our forums and people were talking about shorts. Yeah, and how I think the last World Cup won by somebody with shorts was Danny Hart in 2016. Maybe it's a little bit sooner than that.
No way.
Yeah, that sounds like it could be right.
It was a bit ago. So yeah, for all the World Cup racers that don't listen to this,
there is a shorts bounty
on it. There's a shorts
bounty. We're over $100 now.
Yeah, I probably just need to start a GoFundMe so I can keep track of it. Because I'm sure there's people that have commented jokingly that they would add to it, but then I don't know what it actually is. Well, guys, is that it?
I think so.
There's a wall jump on Loudenville, potential triple.
Before like a corner, kind of like a off camber.
It's like goes over corner kind of thing. It's like towards the top, but there's a wall jump, which is I think that's one of the first times on a downhill track. I've seen them on slalom tracks, speed and style, but
I was wondering about that in the course preview, what the point of that was.
I think you just slow down the speed.
Yeah. All right. There's a few loops as well.
Yeah, I think it's interesting.
Did you just watch the track preview?
I just watched it. Yeah,
it's not bad. It's
no, I think it'll be cool because it's different. I think it's gonna be really physical.
Yep. Good thing you guys are athletes, Dak.
Yeah. It's a good thing you're an
Oof.
athlete.
Mm-hmm.
I'm down with some longer tracks.
Yeah, man, you got to get your 2 30-minute motos in somehow.
There's also a lily pad in the woods towards the bottom, which look
There
kind of
is.
like it could be real interesting if it rains.
Mm-hmm. There's a
It's
few
got a hard
steepies that you then cross a bench cut. So like
Mhm.
mid hard braking, you got to unweight and more hard braking. I imagine that'll get just a
Also-
rut blown through it.
Will they run course tape? Because if they put the little flags up, they're kind of in the grass. It's gonna be hard to see a green flag in grass. So, are they gonna run course tape like in the preview video?
Will they run the ping pong nets or not? Stay
Ooh.
tuned.
Yep.
All right.
We have to stay tuned for that.
All right. Well, we'll get to do this next week. Chat about Loudenville. Should be fun. I'm excited for it.
I won't screw up the timing next time.
It's all right. It's I expect, I don't even know why I try to plan the first time we're supposed to record. That should just be like a practice run. So maybe I'll just say Sunday. Let's plan to record Sunday, and then by Wednesday we should be good. By Tuesday, we'll be ahead one day by Tuesday.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks everybody for listening to B Practice Podcast. Shout out as always to Maxis, Berg Tech, and Industry 9 for their support. See everybody after Loudenville. Peace.
Peace.